And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today we're talking about the rookies who could come in and have a major role in year one for the Washington Commanders. Next, we're going to be talking about the biggest question around the Washington Commanders heading into training camp, which is Terry McLaurin and his looming contract situation. And so before we go ahead and we jump into that, I first want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, just like Jaden Daniels is going to be hitting Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz, and many others for multiple touchdowns this upcoming season. And so in exchange for hitting that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Washington Commanders. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Washington Commanders Insider family as we talk nothing but Washington Commanders football. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. And let's start with the rookies to watch here going into training camp, because the rookies reported for training camp today. And with that being said, I wanted to take a look at rookies who could immediately come in and have a big time role with the Washington Commanders in year one. And so let's start with Trey Amos. And so first and foremost, I think that it was great that the Washington Commanders got the deal done with Trey Amos. We talked about what was going on around the National Football League with not a lot of second round picks being signed. And so the fact that they got the deal done before training camp is great, because I think that Trey Amos really has a chance to be a starter from year one. I think that Trey Amos and what he brings to the table, he really could help bring an identity to the secondary. I think that he's going to be the guy that brings that nastiness to come down and hit ball carriers in the run game. And I also think that he's going to bring that type of physicality on a one-on-one type of matchup as well. I think that he really could turn into a corner that you can put on an Allen, and at some point he's going to be able to lock up some of the best in the game, if not the best. And I know it's the rookie year for him, but I'm just saying I think long-term that could be what he projects to be here. And so I just think that Joe Witt Jr. and then also to Dan Quinn, this is exactly what they wanted to bring to their defense. You know, going back to Dan Quinn and what he coached up in Seattle, I think that you look at what Trey Amos brings to the table, it checks a lot of boxes here and what we saw with the Legion boom. And so I just think that day one, he has a chance to be out there because he's had already some good OTA work. He's had some good mandatory minicamp stuff. We've been hearing about it. We've been reading about it as well. And so now I think it's going to be interesting what happens when you have the pads on, everybody's there, the action becomes live. Is the speed still there? Is the reaction still there? Is he still trying to make plays at an elite level? And then also, too, is he going to step up in preseason? I think that that's going to be the answer for all these rookies that we're going to talk about. Even if they're not going to be in a major role, you've still got to be able to step up here. And so Trey Amos, to me, I think he has a legit chance to be the outside corner alongside of Marshawn Lattimore here. So I think that look for him in going into training camp here, and let's see what happens with him if he gets to a major role in year one. And so the next player that I think certainly could possibly have a real big time role here in year one for the Washington Commanders is going to be Josh Connley Jr. And so with Josh Connley Jr., I think that he is a player to me that, for one, he's part of the future foundation with the Washington Commanders because he's on the same timeline as Jaden Daniels. And when you're talking about setting the foundation for the offensive line, it is going to be Josh Connley Jr. And so I think with Josh Connley Jr., you know, can he win the job outright on the offensive line? Because I do think that it's going to be a battle on the offensive line. We know that Laramie Tunsil is taken care of, but can Josh Connley Jr. outright secure a job on the offensive line, or is it going to be more of a rotational type of piece for him? Or is he going to be a rotational piece in year one, which I think that is probably where he's trending. You know, I think it would be incredible for him to go out there and win the job in, year one. But I definitely think it's going to be a challenge for him. But I think that Josh Connley Jr. certainly has the tools to do so. And let me say this, now that the Washington Commanders have gone out there and they have signed Von Miller, I think it's going to be interesting in practice now when Josh Connley Jr. has to go against Von Miller. But I'll tell you what, he's going to get a chance to get really, really good very quickly going against an elite pass rusher like Von Miller in practice, along with the rest of the defense. But just wanted to throw that out there with Josh Connley Jr. as I think that he has a real chance to have a major role here in year one. Next, let's go into the next rookie that I think is certainly up for a big role in year one here with the Commanders, and that is going to be Jaylyn Lane. I think that Jaylyn Lane, first and foremost, as a special teams player, I think that he has a chance to be an impact there. I think with his speed and his ability to just get up the field, I think that that's going to be huge for the Washington Commanders, especially for an offense that did what it did in year one. And then going into year number two, we're anticipating that this offense is going to be a lot better. And I've said this before, with the special teams game, if you can flip the field and you can just minimize the amount of yardage that Jaden Daniels and the offense has to go, that's going to be huge. So I think that Jaylen Lane can immediately make an impact there. And honestly speaking, I think that there might be a chance that he has a very big package as far as what he's going to do in the wide receiving game early on in year one, especially with what possibly could go on here with Terry McLaurin, which we're going to talk about that in a moment. But I definitely think that there is, the possibility that they can use Jaylyn Lane in multiple situations here to try to get him loose in the middle of the field, down the field, you name it. I think that Cliff Kingsbury is going to draw up some interesting things here for Jaylyn Lane and use that speed and his ability to catch the football. And I'll tell you what, so I got a chance to listen to Zach Ertz, and Zach Ertz was talking about just how strong the wide receiving room is. And he mentions Jaylyn Lane. He talks about his football IQ. He talks about his maturity and how he kind of handles himself. And so that lets me know that, look, he's catching the eye of Zach Ertz, who is very elite, who's done it at a high level. And shout out to Zach Ertz. In fact, he needs just 41 receptions here to be top 5 all time as a tight end. And so, I think that is speaking volumes here when you got a guy like Zach Ertz saying that. He also talked about Noah Brown, who he feels like is definitely a talented player and a better route runner than a lot of people give him credit for, but not to take anything away here from the rookies, because that's what we're looking at right now. But, that again, going into what he had to say about Jaylyn Lane leads me to believe that there's the possibility that he could play some major snaps here for the Commanders at the wide receiver position. And so next, just the next rookie that I think really could possibly step in and have a big role for the Washington Commanders, it's going to be Jacory Croskey-Merritt. I think that when you look at Jacory Croskey-Merritt, coming in, I know he's a 7th round pick. I get all that, but I think that there's the real chance that Jacory Croskey-Merritt can, number one, he can step onto the field in special teams. And I think that he has a chance to make an impact that way. And then number two, I just think that with the running game, if things kind of shake out the way that they did a season ago, where we had some injuries, and then also too, the running game kind of slowed down the way that it did, I think that there is a chance that Jacory Croskey-Merritt has a chance to really have a major role here. And so we've been hearing about what he's been doing in the OTAs and just all the other stuff as well. So it sounds like that he's looking good, showing some good burst and everything else. But much like all these rookies, it's going to depend on what he looks like when the pads get on, when they're actually in the live action, they're hitting and everything else, and then you get into preseason. But make no mistake about it, I think that Jacory Croskey-Merritt, he has all the tools to be RB1. And I know that you have Brian Robinson Jr., I know that you have Austin Eckler, you have Jeremy McNichols out there, you have Chris Rodriguez Jr. Like, I think the running back position as a whole is going to be a great battle in training camp, preseason, whatever. And I've said this before with the running game, this is one of the biggest things that the offense is going to have to nail, because when you're talking about protecting your quarterback, you got to be able to run the football to slow down that pass rush. And also, too, you need to be able to just really stay on balance as an offense. And I think that the Commanders really were terrific when they dominated in the time of possession, which means that you need to be able to run the football. Jacory Croskey-Merritt and these running backs are going to help that. Let's see if he can get to a major role in the running back room. But I definitely think he's going to have something to do with the special teams here. And so next, I wanted to go ahead and jump into the biggest question looming around the Washington Commanders, and that's going to be Terry McLaurin and his contract situation. And so I think that is something that we are going to be looking to see what happens, because the veterans here are slated to report, I believe, on the 22nd of July. And he's already come out and said that he's frustrated. Understandably so. I get it with Terry McLaurin and just everything that he has done, for the Washington Commanders in his time. I mean, you're talking about a player that has got it done with 11 different quarterbacks. This is a guy that hasn't missed the games in the last 4 seasons or whatnot. You're talking about a guy that has just really been dependable and a rock for this franchise. And he was huge for the Commanders last year. He was huge in the NFL. He was second in touchdowns behind Jamar Chase with 13. Jamar Chase had 17. And then when you look at Terry McLaurin and his impact, I continue to keep saying this. I think that this is something that you have to get done because we've talked about the additions on offense. And I just think that Terry McLaurin just really helps unlock this offense even more. In fact, I was looking at some next-gen stats for him last season. And when you look at one of the stats here was the average targeted air yards, which essentially what that shows you there is that lets you know how often he's being targeted or used deep to stretch defenses and things like that. He was tied for 7th in the NFL last year with 13.7. And that was with DK Metcalf and Rome Odunze. So that's just let you know what type of impact that Terry McLaurin has, on the offense as far as stretching the field. And so you can imagine what's going to happen with 17 out there and just the chemistry that he had with Jaden Daniels coming into year number 2. And then also, too, when you look at his impact as far as another stat that I got a chance to look at here with his next gen stuff last year, as far as his share of team air yards, he was tied for 6th in the National Football League with 40.24. And essentially what that tells you here is how much a receiver is targeted on these deep throws, which maybe leads to big plays. And so I think that that is what Terry McLaurin certainly brings, is the big play ability. And so you want to make sure that you get this done. I think that what is good about this is that both sides, I think, want to get it done. Like, I think that the team wants Terry McLaurin and Terry McLaurin wants the Washington Commanders. I just think it's a matter of just them probably coming together on the number or whatever that looks like, because we know that the market continues to keep getting reset. And so obviously we don't know if it is the numbers, but I would assume that that is what it's coming down to, is just the numbers at this point in time. And also, too, he's going to be set to be 30, I believe, in September. But either way, this is going to be the biggest question looming. Is he going to show up? Is it going to be a hold in? Is it going to be a hold out? Is this something where Adam Peters is going to get the deal done? Because he's got the deal done with Trey Amos. He went out there, he got Von Miller. Is he now going to take care of Terry McLaurin coming into training camp? And one of the things, going back to Zach Ertz and what he had to say in his Up and Adams interview, is just that, look, at the end of the day, you need Terry McLaurin at his best when it's time to go. And he's like, look, towards the end of training camp, ready to go for week 1. He clearly believes in Terry McLaurin and the work that he's putting into everything right now. And so I definitely think he's going to be ready. But I do think that this is something where you want to minimize the distraction, because the Washington Commanders, once again, are going to take everybody's best shot coming up to this season. And you want to make sure that you minimize those distractions. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking as far as these rookies who could come in and immediately have a big role with the team. I'm saying it's Trey Amos. I'm saying it's Josh Connley Jr. I'm also saying that it's Jaylyn Lane as well. And also to Jacory Croskey-Merritt. These are rookies that I think could immediately come in and play a major role for the Washington Commanders. And then next, let me know what you guys are thinking here with Terry McLaurin. Do you think that the Commanders are going to get a deal done heading into training camp? Is this something that's going to happen, closer to week 1? What are you guys thinking there? And so, as we always say, go Commanders, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.